Hello, everyone, and thank you to Marketing Masterclass Case Studies for Arts and Heritage Organizations. Through the generous support from Canadian Heritage, Working Culture, working closely with a marketing specialist, Sue Edworthy, and partners, the Kingston Arts Council and the Ottawa Arts Council, have developed a marketing incubator program for arts and heritage organizations in Toronto, Kingston, and Ottawa. This case study is one component of the intensive training and is presented today by Tiffany Tree. She is the chair and CEO of Girls Rock Ottawa, and we're delighted to have her on today. She will be covering an overview of the organization and speaking specifically about how they utilize merchandise to rebrand, to include in their rebranding strategy. So, Tiffany, if you want to go over, the organizational overview, maybe a little bit about yourself, a challenge that you've had, and then like a solution that you came up with, which I believe is merchandise that you provide online, and then tell us about the results and let us know like what the impact was for doing that kind of work. So
Yeah,
over to you.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mona, and thank you to Work and Culture for having me. I'm really excited to be here with everyone today to talk a little bit about our marketing and our merch, and to hopefully spark some ideas for everyone watching to maybe get into creating merch or establishing merch as another revenue stream or as a way to keep your brand identity fresh. And yeah, so I can talk a little bit about Girls Rock Ottawa at first. We are currently a community organization, and our objective is to help girls, women, and gender diverse individuals gain equitable access to opportunities in music. We're located on unceded Algonquin and Anishinaabe territory, and we were established in 2007. Girls Rock is actually a global concept, and so there's actually rock camps for girls or Girls Rock everywhere in the world, from throughout Canada, from Vancouver all the way to New Brunswick, but also through the world, such as in Tokyo, Brazil. They're everywhere. A bunch of like Finland. There's all sorts of girls rock. So we are just the Ottawa chapter, and yeah, so we are mostly volunteer run. So we are a small community organization, and we have a few contract positions, but but it is mostly a lot of sweat, blood, sweat, and tears in the organization and moving all of our programs. So I think I can definitely, I definitely understand a lot of how a lot of and heritage organizations have to operate in this day and age with not that many resources and having to be very resourceful to get by. So yeah, the next slide. Oh, a little bit about myself. Yes, I'm the chair and CEO of Girls Rock Ottawa, and I've been the chair since 2017. And prior to that, I was the vice chair from 2015 to 2017. So I actually got involved with Girls Rock Ottawa initially as a volunteer. I volunteered as a rock camp teacher in 2014 because I'd heard about it and it sounded really cool. And I also was looking to get back into music and to get back into the community. So I started playing piano when I was probably like 4 or 5 years old. And I played until I was probably around 16, 17. And at that point, I hated music because I found that it was so, so stifling. I was doing the like classical music thing, and I just got to the point where it wasn't fun anymore for me because there was like competitions, exams, recitals, like practice would be around 2 to 3 hours a day, and it got to be a lot. As an adult, I appreciate it now, some of it now, because it taught me a lot of like life skills, like like a growth mindset, knowing that I just need to like practice something and I will get good at it. So I appreciate that. I do wish that there had been more elements of creativity in my music education while I was growing up, and that is something I have brought into my work with Girls Rock Ottawa.
Great. And
So as chair, yes.
sorry, I was going to ask, can you tell us a little bit about your marketing staff and how large it
Mhm.
is, or who you have doing work for your social media? That'd be great.
We have a very small comms team. We have two contractors who are working just a couple of hours a week. A comms coordinator who is responsible for almost like content management and coordinating our teams to make sure that the any social media copy has an image to go along with it, and that we have a bit of a strategy. And I work with the comms coordinator to develop that strategy. And yeah, we also have a designer and videographer who is the same person, who is amazing and just putting out all the really great visual content that you see on our social media channels. And then a series of volunteers who either help with posting. Um, we have a posting calendar where we assign, this is the item, the date, this is the item, and this is the person that's posting to keep us organized. It's just like a Google Doc, nothing fancy. And yeah, and then we also have other volunteers who help, like, just doing the email newsletter, for example. We have like a subscriber base of around 500 subscribers for our email newsletters. So just like having, it's volunteer based, so it is hard. So just keeping everyone carved out, having little their own roles works for us. Yeah, and then I guess my main role, aside from sometimes dipping my hands into marketing, um, and I'm trying to do that less and less. But I used to be way more involved in marketing and trying to now do a lot more of the leadership and strategic direction of the organization, providing financial oversight, as well as doing community and stakeholder outreach. Yeah, so in terms of the marketing strategy, and how we decided to develop and create our own merchandise, we were looking to develop additional revenue streams while also building brand awareness for the organization. So a bit of like a two-pronged approach or two-pronged strategy. And our target market are typically girls, women, and gender diverse individuals. Our core audience is 18 to 34 years old. 70% identify as female or gender diverse, and 65% are based in Ottawa, which makes sense given the kind of hyper-local aspect of our organization. And then our marketing platforms are typically social media. We are mostly on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and we're starting, YouTube as well. But we're really starting to get into, we started doing some Instagram reels, and I'm being told that we need to get into TikTok. One thing I should mention, it's probably very good to have at least some younger folks on your marketing team to keep in touch with the trends, because if I cannot take any credit for the fact that we are doing reels and all that stuff, because I don't want to, to be quite honest. And it's the volunteers and the younger team members that push me to consider that and get over my kind of like hesitancy or just like being grumpy about social media. Like, I don't have time for that, but they're like, no, this is where it's going. And having people kind of like lead the way in our organization works really well for us. Where I come in typically is like saying, okay, then if we're going to do Instagram reels or TikTok, can we create a branding, a style guide for all of our TikTok? So at least like, the things that's important to me is that it all looks consistent. So that's how I kind of work in tandem with comms and new technology. Yeah. Yeah. So I would say, in terms of how people learn about our organization, I would say it's mostly social media, traditional and new media. We do events, like I'll do events like this, and a lot of word of mouth as well. Yeah. And I think that's it for this. Yeah. So, on to the marketing challenge and opportunity. So, this in around 2016, yeah, around 2016, I had just joined the board the year prior, and we were looking to rebrand the organization because up until mid 2017, the organization was actually called Ottawa Rock Camp for Girls. And I know it's Girls Rock Ottawa is essentially a derivative of that, but it is a lot shorter. And it was actually, the idea almost came about when we were creating our Instagram account. And, you have to create the handle, the at, and then your handle. And we're like, Ottawa Rock Camp for Girls is a really, really long social media handle. And we're like, I noticed that some other camps were calling themselves Girls Rock, you know, Omaha, or whatever. And I was like, oh, that rolls off the tongue a lot easier. And is there an opportunity for us to do something like that? And then I got into discussions of like, maybe we need a complete rebrand because everything we had was a bit like inherited from a previous governing committee prior to us creating the board in 2015. So we ended up, oh yeah, what we wanted, we wanted a rebrand to ensure that the branding captured our values, but also had a bit more brand consistency. We had never done we hadn't ever brought in a designer to create a logo as well as like an entire branding guide though, like this is your font, these are your colors, like all of those things. So it would kind of change from year to year. And I found that like that doesn't really create the brand identity that you want. Yeah, so that was our biggest challenge. And oh yeah, in the next slide you will see like what we were working with, the previous design and logo. Yes, so you can see here it kind of changed from year to year, and it was also a little bit, we found it a little bit how do I say this, a little bit gendered because it was using like the pink and swirly, and we were wanting to move to a little bit more, and it just moved to go with the times, to be like to say girls and gender diverse folks, because like the vernacular and our society's understanding of like gender was changing so much that we wanted to change with it. So yeah, and also just I like just changing it because you can see like one year it's called Ottawa Rock Camp for Girls. Then one T-shirt has the acronym, which I found very hard to understand, like ORCFG. And then there was one year we created this handwritten, the black writing, Ottawa Rock Camp for Girls there, that it looks handwritten. So I was like, we need to definitely create some consistency and just get a designer to do it because that's what they study, so let's do that. So what we ended up doing was we did a call out for a designer to create a logo and brand guide for us. And we got some requests, like we got some proposals, and we hired a local female designer who had graduated from Algonquin College. And yeah, we ended up creating a new logo. It kind of had a couple of iterations. And after we created the logo, which we'll show you in the next slide, but we ended up doing photo shoots with local musicians and artists in Ottawa to really demonstrate that this is our community. Yeah, it was very well received by the community. And yeah, you can see the end result here. Yeah, this is great. These are all musicians or artists in Ottawa or volunteers even. Yeah, some of them are volunteers. Yeah, but yeah, how great is that? I love the logo. The logo it was just like a work of genius. The designer who did that, it was Sage. And you can see like what was genius about this is like the heads of the guitar, there's 3 of them, and the taller one and then like smaller, like shorter ones, and that signifies like mentorship. So a lot of thought went into it. And I also really like that it was a circle because it really does work really well on merch compared to just kind of like font face or like text from the previous, the old logo or old design. So yeah.
And it looks great on the different colors too.
Yeah. The
Love
colors
that.
part is always the funnest part. Like I usually like survey the comms team, like, okay, what colors do you folks want? And people choose, and I think they really like that. So, yeah.
Do you also have
So,
like a color palette that's went with your branding guidelines?
yeah, we mostly would the first iteration of our merch. I've probably done about 3 or 4 production cycles of merch now. The first one we kept it simple with just like black and kind of like a maroon color to go with our kind of our brand colors. This what most of the photos from this photo shoot and that this production cycle were kind of not linked with our colors at all, but it was just like, let's do a summer run. So let's do these like really fun bright colors. So that was a summer production. And then our most recent one we did for the fall, and it was all like, it was went back to like the maroon gray, like a heather gray, a black and white t-shirts. So yeah, so we've kind of mixed it up. It doesn't have to stay with your branding guide.
Mm.
But I always have like black and now white t-shirts though. Those are always like the solid ones to like, when in doubt, start with those two. Yeah, like we didn't do this type of color palette on our first production cycle.
That's great. And how much were the
um,
t-shirts
to create,
to sell? Because
to
you're
sell.
selling,
Oh, to
yeah.
sell. Right now they are selling for $25 for a t-shirt.
Okay, great.
Which, yeah, it's still accessible. And that, yeah, that was a thing for us, trying to figure out yeah, keeping the costs accessible while covering our own expenses. Yeah. And yeah, one of the challenges, I would say, I don't know if I had covered that earlier, but one of the challenges that I still find to this day is supply chain. I know it sounds all like fancy, but it's basically finding like your products and your suppliers to create the thing that you want at the end of it. And trying to figure that out when you have no experience was really hard the first time. I was like, where do I get the t-shirts? How do I get someone to print the logo on the t-shirt? Who do I go to? You know, and figuring that all out. And then even after that, it's like getting it onto e-commerce platforms. You know, there's that aspect of it. And then also shipping. Once we started doing shipping, that's also really complicated. Having to source the materials for shipping. You know, I have in my closet, I have like a bunch of like envelopes and tissue paper and craft bags and all this stuff for doing that type of stuff. And yeah, and also shipping is super expensive in Canada. So that's always tough too. But yeah, so especially when you're a small organization. And so those are things you kind of all need, you have to take into account as you kind of scale up. Because like most people tend to just like, you sell your merch at events, and that is still like our strongest point of sale. But as other people, you know, we've had people in Toronto purchase our merch before, so like shipping it out, like you have to start figuring that type of stuff. And yeah. Okay, so the result of this is we were able to create an item and merchandise that helped us further our brand identity in a way that incorporated our values, you know, colors that were more neutral, gender neutral, you know, the logo design that really captured the ethos of our organization by that, you know, the mentorship and the music and yes, and then being able to yeah, disseminate your brand identity in a way that is fun through our merch. And yeah, it also brought in a new revenue stream. So on average, we're bringing about 3.2K on annual merch sales from 2017 to 2020. Um, yeah, like 2020 was harder because of COVID, and it really reduced our sales. But prior to that, it was, so that really brought down the average. But yeah, no, it is a revenue stream, and we also, as well as like a marketing stream, because like, you know, we will give we also have tote bags, so we will give the tote bags out to our campers for our annual Rock Camp for Girls as part of the camp package. So it's just another asset for those types of uses as well. And I wouldn't, yeah, we also increased our Instagram followers by 500% from 2017 to present. I wouldn't say that's all due to merch. It's due to a social media strategy, but merch is a component of the strategy for sure. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, 500% is a lot, but it's because we were just starting out in 2017. So there is room to grow. But we started around, I think in 2017, we were at around 400 followers on Instagram. And today we're at over 2,400. So,
So,
yeah.
all in all, you would say that the merch has helped build awareness. Like, even if the earned revenue is a little bit lower, or it's still helping your marketing strategy to build the brand.
Yeah, I think absolutely. Like, I think if you make money off of merch, that's a bonus. Like, because most of the times companies make merch just for marketing, and you can almost write that off as a marketing expense, because you can we give our merch to artists that we book for shows or whatever, like yeah. So yeah, revenue is just one of the purposes of merch, and it shouldn't be the number one purpose, in my opinion.
And you mentioned that shipping is really complicated, and figuring out the e-commerce aspect. What's the platform you're using? Are you using like a Shopify store, or how are you managing the back end of all that through your website?
Yeah, we're using a Squarespace website, and so that's where we do the sales. We also use a Square, like the Square e-commerce thing where people scan. That's really helpful, especially when we back in like 2016, I think we were still like cash only. So we were like, okay, we definitely need to get something that people can be like at an event, like, I just want to buy merch, and that helped a lot. So I highly recommend getting Square or some way to have a remote and mobile e-commerce platform with you. So that's really great. There's probably more now. Like, we got Square back in like 2017 or 2018. So I'm sure there's other things, but some sort of platform is great. Some folks, when they're doing merch, do drop shipping, which is where you have a company that actually does all of the production for you. So you don't have to really worry as much about the supply chain aspect. So that is always an option. I decided to go the old-fashioned way because we were so small that I wanted to fully understand what the production cycle looked like and have a bit more control over it in the beginning. At the same time, the trade-off is that you have to like create the merch up front, and that can be in the thousands of dollars. It is for us, especially since like our last production cycle, we really tried to be more size positive and body positive. So we went up to triple XL. Because we're also hearing that from the community. That's great. It also increased your costs. So constantly like making those types of decisions, and in the future, we'd like to become even more environmentally sustainable. That will increase the costs as well. So that constant juggle between like, doing things that align with your values, and then the extra costs, and balancing that, like, do we want to do that if it increased the price of the merch when we want the cost of the merch to be accessible?
And how did you mentioned that you charged $25. How did you come up with that price?
Looking at other people's prices and and obviously making sure that you cover your costs, but I wouldn't make a price decision just on covering your costs. But yeah, it's more like, what is the value of it to people? And like, I probably could have increased the price a little bit, honestly, in terms of value and our brand value. But then the element of our values came in about, inclusivity and accessibility. So that's kind of where we landed. There is no scientific term. I did not use a formula. I was kind of like, okay, well, like, band t-shirts tend to be for anywhere from like 15, 20 to like 50 even, like, on the higher end you see 50. I'm like, I don't want to be there. So like, where are we, so and yeah, it's a tough one, and you almost have to like try it out, like try out pricing sometimes. And also, yeah, it's hard because like even when we made merch, I wanted t-shirts that were like at least like were good, higher quality, because I really didn't want, sometimes you get like those t-shirts like you're like, ow, it like it scratches you when you like when you put it on. And I'm like, I definitely don't want that type of merch, because then no one's gonna actually wear it. And yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Tiffany. And how can people get in touch with you if they have any other questions about
um,
rebranding or even bringing on merchandise?
Yeah, for sure. You have my email address there, info@girlsrockottawa.com. You can also check out our website at girlsrockottawa.com. And on the socials, we're at Girls Rock Ottawa. And yeah, I definitely encourage everyone to give this a try, because even if you don't make merch, starting at that beginning point of like what is our brand and what are our values is already really valuable. And yeah, and just remembering that merch, it's not just a revenue stream. It is brand identity, but it is a way to connect with your community in a different way beyond maybe your programs, especially as arts organizations, and a way for your community to support you in a way beyond your programs. So don't be shy to get into it. It can be complicated the first time around, but yes, if you have questions, please feel free to contact me. And yeah, after you get it done the first time, it'll get easier. So don't be daunted by it, is what I'm trying to say.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Tiffany. This was really wonderful. I'd also like to thank our funder, Canadian Heritage, for their support, as well as our delivery partners, the Ottawa Arts Council and the Kingston Arts Council, as well as the many organizations who are participating as case studies. So thank you for joining us, and we hope you watch the upcoming case studies. Thanks so much, Tiffany. This was wonderful.
Thank you.